It occurred to me that people are trying to figure out what planners they're going to be using this 2026 planning season. Is going to be what they're using in 2026. Occasionally, too, they'll show this is what I was using in 2025. Maybe this is what I was using in years past. I really enjoy those videos. It's helped me make decisions. So I thought I'd go ahead and share a bit of my planning journey this past year. Maybe it will just be generally amusing when you see the many iterations that I've gone through, or maybe you'll learn something and say, you know what, that one that you discarded, I really like that. I think that's just right for me, or it'll help you when you see what I'm going to be doing, whatever the case. Here's my process. Hopefully, it helps you, or as I said, maybe it will at least be amusing, whatever the case. I started out 2025 in sterling ink. I don't remember the exact name that this is called, but it's the two-part version. So in Hobonichi world, this would be called an AVEC, and this is what I decided to try. I thought it seemed good, and it was good. I want to just clarify up front, I like every planner that I'm about to show you. However, with every planner, there was always something that bothered me just a bit, and I couldn't quite figure out how to get over those things. And so that's why I would move on to a different one and have eventually landed on what I think is the right solution for me. So we'll see how that goes. But anyway, this was where I started in 2025, and it really did serve me well. So I'm just going to show you some things. For instance, one of the things I really like about Sterling Ink is she does provide you with quite a lot of ways that you can track and plan for the next year. So from that respect, this is an amazing planner. And even as I look at it right now, I was unsure how exactly to use this. I knew I wanted to, and that was kind of part of it, was figuring out what really works for me and how can I record this data in a way that I can use it later. And so this is me, trying to record data early on. It was only moderately successful, and it's all part of the evolution of where I have since landed. So if you're in the process of trying to figure out in your health journey how to record this information, maybe this will be helpful to see my failures and how it got me to where I'm at. At the same time, while these I do consider to be failures, these may really be the right solution for someone else, because our minds all kind of work differently. The way we track, it could really work one way for one person and not work that way for someone else. So who knows? But I was tracking my steps and exercise and sleep over here because I hadn't quite figured out how to get that into this section. And I was really just tracking. At first, I was looking at moods, but I was looking at the same that I am now, but sleep energy and stress, which were each represented by different colors. That's a system that I have continued to use. So that did work. There were some things about the way I charted my number range that I was using at the time. Let's see if you can see that there. That just was, it really became confusing to my brain. I would always try to, mark my numbers and use this second data point by accident when I should have used the first data point, and it just got really frustrating for me. There was too much information and it just wasn't simple enough. I was still employing a system that I still use now by marking events with different colors and shapes to help me remember. So, for instance, a red box was a sick day. However, like in this case, this red box, which was on Friday with an M, meant that I had a migraine. And as I continued to do this, like red box days versus red circle days, I just realized I needed more tracking. I needed another way to track it, and I wanted a little more, not just data, but feeling about it. I wanted to be able to write something down about the feelings, which I probably could do in this planner at this point because I've developed my system a lot better. And in some ways, I actually wish I had stuck with this planner in the second part of I'm calling it an AVEC. I don't remember, like I said, what they call this. Because if I had really honed my system, I would still have been in this one. It really is a good planner. I like the paper. I like the paper color. And in terms of like the monthlies, I think I've got some of those marked in here. Yes. I do like how it's really minimal. You don't have any colors in here to highlight the weekend because I can figure out when the weekend is on my own, obviously. And yeah, I mean, this is a good planner. I really do like this planner. What really didn't work for me, and this is just a me problem. It took me a long time to figure this out, but I was not having a good time with my weeklies. So I was trying my weekly habit tracking just like I do now. So if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I track by year. I look at kind of a quarterly overview, and I also have just the weekly when it comes to tracking. I am not, it is monthly, but I can see it month over month in this other section. Well, you'll see that in other planners anyway, but I also like to just see how I'm doing during the week. That helps me stay on top of me. And then I was playing with this task overview system. This wound up really being useless to me in the end. But it was the weeklies that these were really killing me because I don't think in vertical. I also felt pressured to write something down everywhere in order to, prove that I was busy that day. Again, that's just a me problem. I was busy that day, but like sitting down and writing down what I did just felt like a lot of pressure for me. I did work on my system. I started writing at the end of the day how I was feeling because I am marking. So I actually use this system even now where I would mark in red sick days. And then I started to write, like I said, I wanted to have more feelings, a little more context. And so I started doing that at the bottom. And just continued with that. There's really not a whole lot more to be seen here. And then I started, like I have now, I've evolved. And so I continued with a task overview, which I continue to use today. I just use it a bit differently, which you'll see in my end result. But I was playing with putting to-dos over here. this was when things kind of started to turn for me, and I recognized how important a to-do in my week would be, how much I really did need that. Eventually, I started breaking that down into tasks, chores, and then some really specific project work that I was doing. And my schedule evolved as well. I started scheduling up here, working on my habits up here. What I was tracking was changing. And then we get into the dailies, and I'm not going to show a lot of dailies. This is just, writing down life stuff. But I was inspired by what Helen with Coffee Monsters was doing. She had her today section. She would do a prompt and then would write. And that's kind of where I started with it as well, trying to tap into more emotion and not just data and facts. But this became a little too redundant for me because I was keeping track of my to-dos in my week, and then I was like putting in some of my to-dos here, and then also just writing about like these other things that I needed to do to care for my health up here. But I was marking it here, and I was marking it in my weeks, and I was marking it in my monthly, yearly overview, and it was just so repetitive that I hated it, which again, that's just on me, but I was trying it out, and that's what you do. Other aspects of this I really liked. I was just putting ephemera just randomly in and whatnot. Eventually, I changed this, which I'll show you eventually. So that was me in this, and I was really loving this, and just it was good in so many ways. This was really good, and I treasure the time that I had in here. But I evolved. If I had continued to evolve while using this, I'm sure I would still just be using this because it was really good. However, because I moved out of it, I have found a system that I could have used in here and I would have been very happy, but I like a little bit better. And it's always, I don't know, there's always just like one little thing that irks me with something, which I'll explain more when I show you what I moved into next. Okay, next, I used Take a Note, and I gotta tell you, I love Take a Note. There's a lot about Take a Note that I think is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Depending on how you like your journaling system, you could be completely in love with Take a Note. If you haven't seen one or tried one, I'll show you how this is laid out, and you may be like, wow, that is exactly what I've been looking for my whole life. I really love this planner. The feel of it, I love the cover. It has lay flat binding. You'll see how that is on here. And there's something about the way this sits in my hand when I grab it that I just think is amazing. I love Take a Note. I cannot tell you more about how much I love it. It does have some tracking, just like any of these other ones would. And I played with some ideas, like how can I track along the month and stuff. I jumped out of this one really fast, so I don't really have anything to show in the months, and I'm going to show you why. So in the weekly portion, again, I really like this. What my reasoning had been, so this combines, by the way, a horizontal weekly with a vertical weekly. And So what I did is I tried to migrate over what I was doing with doing my tracking like I had been in my Sterling. And then I actually do like a horizontal weekly because, as I said, I am not a vertical thinker. And my thinking was I could use, because these are really wide columns, I could use this and do like micro journaling. That was what I thought, micro journaling, because the thing that this lacks is daily pages. It's just months and weeks. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to use the vertical to write, some of my appointments that are happening during that day. And then I'm going to micro journal, and this is going to be fantastic. And I've seen people who do this and they do an amazing job. I just couldn't seem to really get it down. I I just couldn't quite get it. So then I decided, okay, I really, really love Take a Note, and I really love the layout. Oh, the other thing about this that also didn't work for me, just so you can understand, why didn't I just keep going? I also didn't like not being able to see the whole week in one shot. So that's one of the benefits of it, is these columns are really big. But you only get these 3 days because you have the horizontal weekly over there. And then on the next page, you get the last 4 days of the week. And I don't know, it just didn't quite work. So I figured what I needed was to journal, like just keep a journal outside of this and then use this. But then all of a sudden I'm going, well, now I have this gigantic A5, gigantic. I mean, they're not that gigantic, but And then I also was having an A5 journal, and I didn't like that. So the next thing I did was I got an A6 of the same exact planner, which, oh, I love this. I love an A6 size. I wish I could make an A6 work, because the size of this, the feel of it in my hand, the portability, all of these things sing to my heart. The tactile, I cannot say enough good things about an A6, and especially an A6 Take a Note. Love, 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 love this. I only marked a little bit in here to show you. I was trying to make this work. I was trying to do some tracking in here. I really like a graph. So, and then I was like mood tracking on this side. Let me see if I can get that close enough so you can really see. And that actually was really working. I still really like this. And if I could incorporate that in some way in my current setup, I really would. But what doesn't work for me, just so you know, about this is it's too hard for me to correlate what is happening with my mood and what's happening with me physically. I really need this information on the same page as what's happening with me physically. Oh, but I do love this size. And even as small as this is to try to work in, I can make it work. Yeah, but obviously I'm not in this one anymore. So we'll move on to the next thing that I tried. So this correlates with the A6 Take a Note that I was just showing you, and the next journal, or not journal, planner that I tried. So this is just my journal. And I'm just going to show this briefly. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen journals and don't need like to analyze my journal that much, but there's a journal for you. I do like this, and I really liked the freedom that comes with not having a dated page every day and feeling like on those days when I don't have yards of time that I need to sit down and journal. I really like to fill every page when I have a dated page. I am getting over that, but it's still kind of hard. So this works really well for me, which is why I went ahead and I got a Hobonichi A6 size. And again, right back in this size that, is just, this is the size of my dreams. I love this. I love this. I love this. And if we go to another one that I tried in the journey, so this is a Kinbor, right? Is this a Kinbor? Yeah, Kinbor. By the way, I recommend a Kinbor. This is really inexpensive. I don't know if there's any Kinbor people out there who are going, yes, Kinbor is great. But I actually think Kinbor is great. Again, there's just these things that aren't working for me in it. But what I was playing with in my Kinbor was properly using the timeline side for my to-dos, or, this is the stuff I'm going to do today. Of course, at the time I was trying to use it vertically again, and I don't timeline very well vertically. And then I was tracking, and then I was creating a to-do, and then I was trying to journal over here. My only other complaint with the Kinbor is I just feel like in person, this paper color is a little, it just looks a little dingy. And that's really important to me, the paper that I'm looking at. As far as writing on it with a pen, a fountain pen in particular, I use fountain pens. I've shown other pens that I also use. I thought this was great. And I was playing with different monthly ideas in here and doing this, which eventually I continued to do, which was just what projects do I have over the course of the month that I need to keep an eye on. But trying to do a to-do and keep track of appointments and journal all on one page, that wasn't working too good for me, and this doesn't have a weekly, so that went out. So that brings me back to the idea that I would journal in an A5 that is undated. This, by the way, is Tomoe River paper. I can't remember the company that produced this. I got it on a clearance from someplace. It's good. I quite like it. Just set that aside and I'll explain what I use it for now. But I thought I could keep track of everything, keep track of my appointments by the month, and do my tracking, my health tracking in the A6 Techo. And I can actually, not super effectively. It was so small. I can do the monthly. That's not that big of a problem. And how I started using this, which, maybe this would help somebody. I don't know what helps people, but, let's see. What I started doing was at the start of the week on Monday, I would write out like some priority to-dos, like maybe that was for the day, so up at the top. And then I did use the side timeline for the things that I had to do during that day. And then I created a horizontal weekly just so I could get a week's overview. And then I would just use the rest of the days for the rest of the week for the micro journaling that I talked about, in addition to a bit of daily keeping track of some things. And I continued to try to vertically plan because that seemed to be basically my option. And so I was really trying to make this square peg that is me fit into a round hole. That brings me back to today. Sorry, this is a little wobbly. I'm trying to get a little better view. This is what you have seen on my Facebook page. This is what I've shown in my videos, where I was inspired by someone, I wish I could remember who, that had just said, no, I don't think vertically, and I'm going to turn this into what I need it. And I said, yeah, you did. And so I started to do the same thing. I won't spend a lot of time on this because we already know that this is what I do. What it is that I do, that's how I got from point A to point B, maybe actually point A to point B to point C, etc. But that's how I landed on the Hobonichi Cousin A5. So what I have left, I'm just kind of speeding through here. It's really a teaser for the next video. I will show how I commonplace in my current cousin, and also how I'm content planning in 2026. I don't actually see myself as a content planner. I am a project manager, but because I have started creating content and I want to share stuff that I hope people enjoy or find useful, I figure I really need to actually have a plan. So I will, at that point, show you what I started doing in the Hobonichi weeks and how the Hobonichi weeks actually wound up not working for me, even though I do love it. And then where I have since begun migrating and how I am migrating, because I think maybe it might help to see how I plan to plan. Maybe that will help if you're in the process of trying to figure out how a future planner is going to work for you. So look for that content coming up. Thanks for watching. If you stayed with me this long, you're a trooper. I'll talk to you later.